Hello, MUS 1002 students. This is just a quick overview of your final projects, the rubric, and what to expect. So, what can you do for options? Sad to say, there have been a large increase in the amount of students who I have caught using AI to generate answers for essay questions in recent weeks. I've dealt with them privately, but because of that, I am removing the option to write a final paper. Instead, there are two options you can choose from. In either case, you need to research a chosen piece of music technology. Then you can either do a narrated presentation using PowerPoint or Prezi. I do not accept Google Slides or Keynote. This presentation has to be a minimum of 3 to 5 minutes, and it must be a PPTX PowerPoint file. You can also do a movie, again, 3 to 5 minutes minimum, and then send that as a AVI, MOV, or MP4 file, or most other standard codices are fine as well. Please no raw video files. Those tend to be large. One student tried to do that a couple of years ago, and it was nearly 50 gigabytes for a 5-minute movie. In every case, you will also have to do a bibliography of at least 13 sources at a minimum, 3 of which must be musical examples that demonstrate your piece of technology, either audio or video that you play during your video, or that I can click on in your PowerPoint presentation. The remaining 10 sources must be academic sources. Books from the library, articles from JSTOR, manufacturers' websites, magazine reviews, etc. You must quote them in your presentation, and they must be properly cited in the bibliography. Wikipedia, as always, is not accepted, nor is any use of artificial intelligence. Your citations can be cited in either APA or Chicago Manual of Style format. It's your choice, but personally, I prefer to use the Chicago Manual of Style format. Finally, your bibliography must be uploaded as a .doc or .docx file. That is Microsoft Word. Keep in mind, I do not accept PDFs or Google Docs. So let's talk about the rubric and how I'm going to grade your project. There are a number of questions, and there are a number of points for everything. The first major thing is that you discuss the history of your piece of music tech. When was it invented, and who was the first musician or musicians that used it? In a lot of cases, this is going to be the inventor, so that's usually pretty easy. You'll need to do a presentation that covers how the technology works. Don't be afraid to get technical here. I am more than happy to go through lots of complex equations and windowed Fourier transforms, or get into technical explanations of heterodyning oscillators or other deep scientific concepts. You'll need to have an adequate discussion of how musicians have used your piece of technology and how it shaped the musician's creative process. This is where your 3 audio or video examples are going to come into play. Very easy to show examples that will justify how musicians have used it. Then, and this is the big one, you'll need to have a discussion of how people, not musicians, but the average listener, have interacted with music, how they perceive and understand, and what they hear when music uses this piece of tech, and most importantly, how this piece of tech that you've chosen impacts and has influenced society and culture. In some cases, this can be really easy. You could talk about, for example, auto-tune and the massive backlash against it. Or you could talk about the electric guitar and how it helped shape rock and roll, or the use of drum machines in hip-hop. Other cases, it might be a little bit more subtle, like looking at microphones and how they're literally everywhere today. Your phone, your car, your Amazon smart speaker. Then, last but not least, You must have a presentation of the appropriate length, again, 3 to 5 minutes at a minimum, and it must be delivered in an organized, purposeful, and polished manner with proper citations. So, what topics are good? Let's talk about this. When you're selecting a topic, you really do want to research the social aspects question first. If you cannot answer how the technology has shaped society and culture, and what non-musicians hear and perceive in music that uses that technology, it's immediately a bad topic and you need to find another one. This is the single question where people have historically lost the most points. So make sure you can answer that very, very clearly with examples. Next, look for the audio or video examples that demonstrate the piece of music tech that you've chosen. In some cases, this is going to be really easy. In others, you'll find that topics like headphones, speakers, or mixers would be really hard to do because they don't have a lot of audio examples and they can sound like, well, pretty much anything. Finally, look for good sources. Manufacturers' websites have a lot of things like statistics, technical information, and they can have really good and sometimes very interesting histories. Reviews from publications like Create Digital Music or Tape-Op in particular are extremely detailed, occasionally overly technical and a little geeky, but very useful. And you can find a lot of historical information on JSTOR and surprisingly in Oakland's library, which has a very, very large and surprisingly detailed music tech section. And keep in mind that while Wikipedia is forbidden as a source, it may have links to academic sources at the bottom of an article, which will hopefully take you directly to the JSTOR article that they're citing. So here are a couple of topic suggestions that will help you get started. First is the theremin. It's the only instrument you play without touching. It's a huge influence on the development of the synthesizer, and its history is literally something out of a spy novel. Microphones generally are a very good topic. Just make sure you cover the major types: dynamic, ribbon, and condenser, and polar patterns. There are a lot of manufacturers to choose from, and the history is very well documented. Autotune may be the easiest to find answers to the social aspect question, and a lot has been written about it. It's also got kind of a wild history when you start reading about how it was initially developed. But be aware that, again, as I've said before, I am not afraid of technical stuff and lots of hard math, so you will have to get a little technical in explaining how it works. Synths in general have a lot of history, tons of examples, and there's a lot to talk about in terms of the social aspects, particularly the backlash against synths that occurred in the 80s. Drum machines like the 808 and the 909 have a lot of history as well. There's lots of examples, and they've been covered extensively in academic sources. Now, there are some topics to avoid, however. Headphones, speakers, or mixing consoles are a terrible choice because of a lack of audio examples. Drum machines generally are too broad of a category. You're going back, well, at least as far as the Rhythmicon, so you would need to focus more on one specific drum machine. Any musical instrument prior to the electric guitar. For example, if you decided to write about the piano, that's an instrument, it's not really technology. Other things like music notation software. Technically it's technology, but this one generally fails the social aspect question as the general public never really interacts with it. So those are some ideas to get you started. As always, if you have any questions about this, please contact me. I'm happy to talk to you about it, happy to help you with citation formats, and even brainstorm where to find some other sources if you're having trouble with that.